Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Today marks the 1 year anniversary of the hot war between the forces of good versus the force of evil. And in this video, I will give two visions, two angles of this hot war between these two opposing forces. One is going to be the official, allowed, accredited, only one version of the events, and this is what we are supposed to all think that things happened over there. And the other version is, the crazy people's version, people who choose to analyze things on themselves and just have crazy ways of seeing life. So let's start with the first. We have the forces of good, the good people, the good nations, which are the United States of America and the Alliance. Remember, this is the official version. United States of America and the rest of the world, who will not let one particular evil country, which is Russia, which has a imperialistic desire to conquer the world, like many others before, many other countries, and I would mention Nazi Germany and their evil dictator, Adolf. In this case, we have this evil guy called Putin, who wants to take over the world, and Ukraine first, and we, the forces of good, have to stop him. Putin and his cronies, criminals, unprovokedly attacked Ukraine, and this is where they got so far in Ukraine, but they're losing. They have been losing from the very beginning. So the color, or whatever the color, this is reddish color, brownish color. This is where the Russians occupied already because they were losing. So this is the rest of Ukraine, which the Russians intend to conquer together with Poland. But the forces of good stopped them right here, and stopped them because the Russians were losing. That's why they stopped them, and they're going to push them back, and we're going to win, because the forces of good always win. In this war, all the people are united, the good people are united, all of them, and including Canada, and including Australia and Japan and South Korea. And there are some evil countries who seem to turn really, really dark, and those are China, India, and about whomever, but these are just a fringe minority, as the great leader of Canada, Trudeau, said about those truckers. So this is how it goes. This will win, the forces of good versus the force of evil. And I'm going to show you the participants. We have here a hero, and this hero is none other than the Ukrainian President Vladimir Volodymyr Zelensky. He is fighting like our civilization used to have, the kings fighting in front of their armies, like Alexander the Great. Remember, he was in front of all his army charging in. All right, so on his horse, Cephalus, whatever his name was, I think. And so this is the forces of good, who is, Napoleon and all this General Patton and Alexander the Great and many others are nothing compared with this gentleman. Now, on top of this, we have also the forces of evil. And these forces of evil are, the force of evil actually, is led by this dude, who is obviously, nonchalantly hurting a horse here. So we have to call PETA because he's just hurting the horse. And anyway, he's just looking like this because he's a macho guy who's appealing to his fellow Russians who don't really know much, and they fall for everything. They're not very sophisticated like we are in the West, in the forces of good, a coalition of perfect. So this guy is the bad dude right here. And we have the other fantastic god-like figure who is also helping in this, and this is this right here. All right, and this guy right here would like to smell the beautiful hair of this very, very, very happy and comfortable lady. I have many pictures of this gentleman proposing a little bit of a, hey babe, how about we just disappear for a while? So this is in a nutshell how the war and how things are supposed to be thought by us. That's how we have to look at them. This is the official version. And for the future, the forces of evil will be always destroyed by the forces of good, because the forces of good are the forces of good. I mean, okay? And they're winning. They've been winning from the very beginning. When these guys unprovokedly attacked Ukraine, they will be somehow pushed back from their losses. We are supposed to also accept the fact that about 150,000 Russians were killed, and with all the losses about 200,000. But hey, I don't think any Ukrainian was killed over there, because we don't know any numbers, any of the Ukrainian casualties. Nothing. The free mass media, the good free mass media, does not know that, and nobody will tell us. So therefore, if there's no information, there's nobody died. We, the forces of good, send over there tens of billions of dollars from the taxpayers' money, because we want to support, we all support, hold hands, and we all support the fight against evil. And our leaders, who are not our representatives, they are our leaders, they will do this in our name, with the help of the military, with the military-industrial complex, who works on our behalf to keep us safe, okay? And then the banking system, who provides money to the people who give money to the defenders of love and freedom and truth and the forces of good. You know, Zelensky, the Ukrainian Zelensky, and his Ukrainian leadership, which is Zhmyhal. Zhmyhal is not the Ukrainian, who's the prime minister appointed by the Ukrainian Zelensky. Then you have the defense minister, who's another Ukrainian. His name is Reznikov. And another Ukrainian who is the president's office chief, like chief of staff in the United States of America, I guess. And his name is another Ukrainian, Yermak. We have 4 Ukrainians defending a Ukrainian nation from the evil Russians. Okay, now this is it. This is the accepted and only version of what's going on over there. Now, what's another version, which is really, really bad, and this is only bad people would think of it, and I don't know, they just are crazy. This is a crazy, imaginary, make-believe version. Okay, we have, in the United States of America, we have NATO, we have Ukraine, and we have Russia. And Russia, Soviet Union disappeared in 1991. Russia became a Russian Federation, and then NATO did not disintegrate, but the Warsaw Pact disintegrated by itself. NATO somehow stayed on, and then supposedly by some verbal promises, 1991, I think it was, the Soviets were promised that NATO will not expand east 1 inch in exchange of the Russians allowing the unification of Germany, among others. And they said no inch, and the naive Russians says, yeah, it's okay, yeah, you're not going to expand, right? No, we're not going to promise, man. Businessmen promise. Is that how it is? A gentleman promise or something. So I don't have to. All right, gentleman agreement, I guess. But hey, NATO advanced towards east until it got to almost Russian borders, which would be Ukraine. They got defense missile systems in Romania, defense missile systems in Poland. They tell us that those are against Iran attacking Europe, when if you look over the map, those are actually against someone else. And they're not defensive, because defensive can be turned offensive. But anyway, Putin and Russians told them, hey, back off, you're too close, you actually ruin our security. We have security concerns because you limit the time of our reaction in case you launch something from Romania versus launching from Germany. Our time of reaction is greatly diminished. And if you bring, the Americans said, move on, we're not going to talk to you, who are you? In the meantime, United States did some hanky-panky in the world in the past 30 years. In Yugoslavia, bombarded Yugoslavia illegally with NATO, with a gang, and the gang went and descended on Iraq. Why? I don't know exactly why. For weapons of mass destruction, for what? For September 11, for what exactly did these guys invade Iraq? Well, regime changed, they decided Saddam is bad and we're going to bring freedom and democracy. That's Iran, not yet. Iraq, and it was Afghanistan, and Libya, and Syria, and whomever. In the meantime, they recognized an independent province of Serbia called Kosovo, where the Albanians, backed by NATO guys with the guns, said, we decide to be independent. And that independence was immediately recognized. Referendum. They said, well, we're going to hold a referendum. The UN charter, self-determination, we decided. Okay, the Serbs did not like that, but what can they do, because NATO was over there, and NATO/United States. NATO is United States. The rest is just weasels that they use, like cards. So they decided in 2008 Kosovo to become a country and independent, and it was hailed and applauded. The democracy worked. Referendum, okay. Now things got shittier when, in 2014, there was a coup in Ukraine, organized by some guys from inside Ukraine and from outside Ukraine, orchestrated and helped by certain forces. And the legitimate, democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych, the president, was overthrown by a coup. Now, that's not a democratic process, is it? He was not a dictator. He was the president-elect. Anyway, the moment the guy was toppled by these guys, they were recognized by the countries, democratic countries, as being, yes, great, we got it. Thank you very much. You're the one. They love democracy. Remember Kosovo, right? Then certain regions in Ukraine did not agree with that situation and said, we don't recognize this coup over there. This is actually not how democracy works. The people in Kiev, the new guys, sent tanks over there to shut them up and all that. They picked up arms, so they started fighting. In the meantime, 2014, 2015, there were two Minsk agreements between, in a Normandy format, it was France, Germany as the guarantors, and then it was the breakaway provinces, Ukraine and Russia. They all were, Russia was, okay, let's see what's going on over here. They were not involved, signatories. And there were certain kind of steps they had to take in order to figure out these provinces that would stay within Ukraine, preserve Ukraine as a country, would not break away, and so on, restore the minorities' rights, and so on. Well, 8 years forward, the Ukrainians armed themselves with the help of NATO. We brought trainers, military infrastructure and all that, getting ready. Germany and France did not work as guarantors. They were just waiting for these guys to get armed so they can do something. The hostilities started again after 8 years in the provinces, and Russia said, well, if it goes like this, we need legal binding guarantees from the West, on the paper, legal, that you guys are not going to attack us, NATO is not going to do this, our security, we feel very threatened because you brought infrastructure here. And they were talking about NATO, joining NATO, Ukrainians and so on. The Americans did not want to hear about that. They looked and say, okay, start that already, what are you doing? And the Russians eventually entered the territory of Ukraine, of these eastern provinces, whereas the majority of population are Russians, who were killed by some military from Ukraine. Remember, they said the military over there. So they said, oh yeah, we're going to come and defend our brothers and we're going to denazify. They came with four demilitarize and no NATO for you guys. 4 requirements. They said, well, one, these breakaway regions, which was Crimea at that time, which Crimea did exactly what Kosovo did, which was held 2 referendum. One referendum was to break away from unrecognized regime from Kiev, since they overthrew a legitimate regime. So they said, well, we don't recognize this one. Then they voted to get out, and then they voted the people, the will of the people, like Kosovo, to join Russia. Russia came, got it. Remember, Kosovo was given by Khrushchev from Russia to the Ukrainians in 1954. 1954, okay? Then the provinces here where the Russians entered Ukraine, invaded, however you want to call it, defending their people, protecting them. They held referenda to break away from those guys. The Russians recognized them, the will of the people, and then the will of the people, held those provinces, Luhansk, Donetsk, and so on. They voted, again, through referenda, the will of the people, to join Russia, the same as Kosovo. But hey, these guys did not, the forces of democracy did not recognize that. They recognized Kosovo and the guys who toppled a legitimate democratically elected government of Ukraine in 2014. Now the Russians attack and they fight. Now the forces of good, which we know who they are, they started pumping money and started sanctions and sending weapons. Probably volunteers over there. Anyway, they're fighting the forces of evil. Now the Russians advanced to a certain point. They lost on 2 fronts. I'm going to show you how much where they lost. Actually, it's not. It is on this map, and you can see those gray area here. Now down here they lost in Kherson area through a counteroffensive, Ukrainian counteroffensive, and right here in Kharkiv area. That's what they lost. I don't see it here. And the Russians still have this because they've been losing from the very beginning of this war, we're told. The Russians' goal is to, as I said, stated goal is to demilitarize Ukraine, make it a neutral country, which no NATO, no us here. Recognize those provinces that Russians are majority of population, and there's no turning back on that. Denazify the country, according to the Russians. There, and not only, but there's the Azov battalion, just to mention one. There are some elements that really are nationalistic, but to the extreme. Because now to be a nationalist and love your nation is bad, but that's why I said extreme, which turns to, infringing other nations or other ethnicities' rights within the borders of the country we all live. So discriminate again based on, xenophobic. So these are the goals of Russia. In the meantime, China and other countries joined in. The real support of this war comes from some European countries, not all European countries. Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, and that's about it. The rest of the world keeps its mouth shut, or they support, some of them support Russia. This is where we are right now. What's going to happen next? We'll see what country will break the Western Bloc, the forces of good, or Russia. China seems to join in. In the meantime, our elected officials who represent us, work for us, we voted for them, give money in our name without asking us, billions, tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine without asking. They can give, if tomorrow they decide to give, I don't know, $500 billion, we can't do anything about it, anything. And we have to pay for that because they're going to borrow that money and they have to print it, inflation and all that. Why? Because we have to defend Ukraine. Russia, on the other hand, is forming another club, which was in creation anyway, together with China, probably India, South Africa, Brazil, on the BRICS foundation. And those are, it's an economic organization on the developing countries. They also have the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They formed already blocs that will join in, and they work on the great dollar to cut its ankles. So the dollarization of the world. You have Saudi Arabia, who's on the fence. You have even Turkey, a NATO country that's So this is where we are after 1 year. Solutions for the war? Well, either the West, which is the United States of America, and Great Britain as a house servant. The rest are just baboons in this coalition. Decide to, okay, stop, we're not gonna, let's talk. Something hurts home. Otherwise, these guys are not gonna change. Russia will not lose, because if it loses, they're gonna use nuclear weapons. So how can Russia lose? And the victory would be for the other side if you get rid of Putin and about, I don't know, I would say at least 300 people overnight. You take them out and you bring your own people over there overnight, and you assume that the people of Russia will agree with that. Why do I say that? Putin, the evil guy, the guy on the horse, hurting the horse, he has a popularity in the 80s, 79, 80% by the Russian people. Biden and the forces of good have it in the 41% Biden last time, and Macron like 32, Sunak, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, again like 30 or something. So those guys are in the free world. Somehow the elected representatives have in the 30s, and Biden is the highest with 40, 41. The communist Trudeau has 39. Just so you know, Japanese Prime Minister has 22. So Scholz again, like 20 some. So these are the forces of good. The people don't really like what they do, but nevertheless they do it, because that's how it's in democracy. The dictator Putin has about 80. Somehow the population, I don't know, but those guys are lying, okay? Now, if you change the regime over there and you put a few weasels, remember, you still have the Russian structure. I'm not sure that those guys will follow the new leaders appointed, rule. So that Russia is going to disintegrate possibly into a few groups with nuclear weapons. So you're going to have some crazies over there with nuclear weapons. So good luck with that. Dealing with a crazy, now you deal with four super crazy. Good luck. And we are the forces of good. Remember, if they want, they can end all this with a few buttons. So can we. We. They. Why I say they? Because we have no say. They no say. So this is a summary of what's going on so far in Ukraine. Unfortunately, there's a lot of destruction. The Ukrainians are going wherever they can. They fight, they die, the same with the Russians. We have a high inflation. The economies are doing great. And it's okay. We borrow money that we're going to pay with interest from international banking systems. The energy companies make a kill. The military-industrial complex has parties. It's all great for those three sectors of economy. This is where we are, my friends. From a perspective of a crazy people, this is not how it is. it is the way they tell us it is, and I gave you the little summary at the beginning of this video. So forget about what I said in the past, I don't know, 7-8 minutes, the craziest version, because it's just crazy. The other one is the real one, and we all have to incorporate that in our brains and soul, because they say so, and because they are the forces of good. And if we don't do that, we are definitely then on the other side, and we don't want to be on the other side. But hey, we're free, and free to shut the fuck up. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.